All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is a nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books. Charis Books is the South's almost 50-year-old independent feminist bookstore. We're turning 50 this November. We would love for you to celebrate with us. Thank you. Yes. We'll be celebrating from November 2nd through November 9th. There's some other stuff happening that week, but we think that it's really going to be a party for Charis. So we hope you'll join us. We have a dance party, we have an in-store party, we have writing circles, we have art making circles, and a lot of things to help us stay centered in the midst of a wild time on November 5th. So we hope that you will join us and be with us through all of that, whatever may come. But tonight we are here to celebrate. We're claiming you as one of our own. Um, Come by here, a memoir and essays from Georgia's Geechee coast. And this is by Neesha Powell-Ingabire. Neesha has been with us to celebrate other people's books, and it's always a joy when we get to help someone launch their book into the world. So we are going to get right into it, but first I want to introduce K Toyin Agbebiyi, who is a Black disabled lesbian organizer, writer, and strategist from Kennesaw, Georgia. The majority of Kay's work revolves around political education, writing, and organizing strategy in regards to ending the prison industrial complex. Kay has given trainings and lectures at universities such as Yale, Columbia, the University of Michigan, the University of Iowa, and the University of Illinois Chicago Medical School. Kay's writing has been featured on Rewire News, Wear Your Voice, and also in MoMA PS1. They've also been featured in magazines such as Bitch and Glamour. In 2020, they were chosen for the Bitch 50 list. Kay currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia. When they are not working and organizing, they enjoy spending time reading, exploring outside, and hanging out with their friends. And we also, of course, claim Kay as one of our own because Kay has also been a part of many conversations at Charis as a writer and cultural organizer. So welcome, Kay. Thank you so much for being here. And many of you obviously know Neesha, but Neesha is a coastal Georgia born and raised movement journalist, essayist, and community and cultural organizer living in Atlanta on traditional Muskogee territory. She's the director of popular education at Press On, a Southern movement media collective. Neesha reports on the justice movements of the Black, trans, queer, and Southern communities to which she belongs and writes essays to recover her own history and the histories of her ancestors and their ancestral homes. Her writings have been published in various online and print publications, including Harper's Bazaar, Oxford American, Scallywag, and Vice. Her debut book, which we're celebrating tonight, is out from Hub City Press, which is one of our favorite presses out of Spartanburg, South Carolina. And it chips away at coastal Georgia's facade of beaches and golden marshes to recover undertold Black history alongside personal and family stories. So we would love for everyone, both online and in person, to put their hands together in celebration of Combat.
All right.
Yeah, do you want to get started?
Let's do it. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I can't believe so many people came. Wow. Thank you. Wow. And thank you, Toyin.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. When we sat down, I was like, I feel like we have a podcast. So look out.
Yep, this is our new podcast.
Yeah. How does it feel now that the book is out in the world?
It feels nerve-wracking, but it's very exciting. I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life. I feel like I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to publish a book, and here we are. So, wow, I can't believe it still.
Wow. That's great. So yeah, do you want to read a little bit of your book?
Yeah.
And then we'll do questions, or I'll ask questions, and then we'll do audience questions.
That sounds good. And I guess y'all can read along because a lot of y'all have bought a book. Wow, I feel like we're at church. Please open your Bibles. No, I'm just joking. Okay. All right. Let's go to page 89. Yeah, I know. Um, a brush with magic, or an ode to Mrs. Cornelia. And can y'all hear me good? Okay, great. Cornelia Walker Bailey of Sapelo Island, Georgia, died as a toddler, but got brought back to life. After the island carpenter had already built her pine box casket, her aunt packed garlic into her nose. Just like that, the small child awoke. From then on, the community thought the girl possessed special powers. Elders or binyas didn't often talk to young people, but she was the one exception. They flocked to the girl to understand where she'd been. She existed between two worlds, Earth and the other side. Mrs. Cornelia believed in magic. In her 2000 memoir, co-authored with Christina Bledsoe, God, Dr. Buzzard, and the Bolito Man, a saltwater Geechee talks about life on Sapelo Island. She wrote, "Back in the 1940s, when I was growing up, it was part of everyday life over here on Sapelo Island to believe in magic and signs and spirits. My family absolutely believed. That's right. The spirits were always in our lives, always. People talked to the spirits and accused them of playing tricks and being full of mischief. Mrs. Cornelia died again at age 72 in 2017, but not before leaving an indelible mark on the world. Everyone in McIntosh County knew Mrs. Cornelia, including my mom, who grew up across the river from Sapelo in the small city of Darien and raised me and my siblings in nearby Brunswick. They're over here. When I showed Mama a book I got for sale from Powell's Books in 2018, Sapelo's People, A Long Walk into Freedom, published in 1994 by William S. McFeely, the first thing she asked was, did they talk about Mrs. Cornelia Bailey? The island's resident griot, the community oral historian and storyteller, a tradition brought to coastal Georgia by enslaved West Africans who revered this role. Mrs. Cornelia was a gatekeeper who had every right to be one, but she also graciously shared her magic. When McFeely embarked on his research, meeting with Mrs. Cornelia was one of his first stops. Upon leaving her job with the state of Georgia in the 1970s, she became a full-time activist as a founder of Hog Hammock Community Foundation in 1976, Sapelo Island Cultural and Revitalization Society, or SACARS, in 1993, and the nonprofit Save Our Land Ourself, now known as Save Our Legacy Ourself, or SOLO, in 2010. She specialized in bringing people together. On weekends, Sapelonians and their mainland kin would gather at her home to smoke, drink, flirt, and party, even ministers and deacons. One of her primary collaborators, Geechee, suggested putting up a plaque in her honor when she died. Her son, Maurice Bailey, didn't think she would like that since she was so action-oriented. He convinced them to instead establish the Cornelia Walker Bailey Program on Land and Agriculture, of which he is a co-director. According to Maurice, people always told her all the history and stories. She could remember all that stuff. It was the 1990s before she started writing stuff down. She could recite everybody's birthday, who was related, who was married to who, how many kids they had, where they lived, etc. She was that person in the community everybody turned to for information and advice because they trusted whatever she said. She had this ability to make things happen. I will never get to meet Mrs. Cornelia in the flesh, but feel a kinship with her anyway. I too seek to tell and preserve the story of my roots on Georgia's coast and to bring people together to celebrate our culture. After reading McFeely's book, I dreamed of walking in Mrs. Cornelia's shoes and one day seeing the place she called home. As a kid, I'd always gazed with curiosity at the sign pointing to Sapelo, standing next to my church. Writing this book finally pushed me to see what lies beyond the sign. Time to look for Mrs. Cornelia. Since she believed in magic, I knew her spirit must still be there, presiding over the island's affairs. And I think I'll stop there, but y'all should continue reading on your free time.
Okay, so why did you write this book, and why now?
Yes. Good question. That's what you have to say. Good question, but no, important question. Why did I write this book? Okay, like I said earlier, that I've always wanted to write a book. I feel like I have considered myself a writer since I was in kindergarten, and I got some pieces published in Young Georgia Authors in this publication, and so I've always loved writing. Like in middle school, I was like on the newspaper staff. In high school, I was managing editor of the literary magazine. When I went to the University of Georgia, majored in journalism, wrote for the school newspaper, started working as a freelance journalist. So I've always loved writing. And then I entered a Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing program in 2019. A lot of my classmates are here tonight, which is exciting. And yeah, I went into that program just with the intention of wanting to write a book. And it was hard. I came in, as a journalist and not having a lot of creative writing experience. So it was an uphill battle. And like sometimes I was just like, I'm never gonna, write anything that anybody would want to read. But I guess I did because y'all are here. Yeah, and so at first I feel like I thought I could write like something that was kind of less personal. But then when I got into grad school, like I feel like, I realized that to connect with people, it needed to be more personal. And that's how the personal essays came about. Um, I was doing a lot of like reporting on coastal Georgia. I was doing, which is where I'm from. I think y'all have figured that out by now. But yeah, I've been doing reporting on like environmental toxins in the air and the water. When Ahmaud Arbery was murdered in Brunswick, Georgia, I was, doing some reporting on that. And so just I continued being like pulled home. And like, even though I wasn't living in Brunswick, I was living in Seattle at one point. I live in Atlanta now. I don't know. It just made sense for me to be reporting on home. And then when I got into into grad school, I don't know, it just made sense to write about me and then my relationship to where I'm from. And then I always tell people now, if you are looking for something to write, just like look in your own backyard. Because growing up, I never thought that, where I live was anything worth writing about. But now, I don't think that, obviously. And yeah, that's what I would encourage everyone. If you're looking for something to write, just look in your own backyard. And there's so many stories there that are waiting to be told. Yeah.
And what do you like about writing?
Ooh.
Sorry, I'm going off script.
No. Let's do it. No, it's interesting. I'm usually the one asking the questions. So, what do I like about writing? Oh man, it can be hard. Toyin has a book coming out as well. Yeah. And yeah, it can be really hard because sometimes you just get stuck, right? What do I like about writing? Oh goodness, it's fun. It's just always been like my like creative outlet, and I feel like it doesn't cost much, right? And it's something you can do by yourself. You can do it with other people as well. And yeah, I've always been a creative person, and I think it can be like cathartic, getting your feelings out on paper. And I'm very curious. I am very, very curious. I think that's where the journalism comes in at. I feel like I like to ask a lot of questions. And I just like to find out new information. So yeah, my curiosity. And I think you find out, you learn a lot about the world, you learn a lot about yourself. Yeah.
And how does it, or how did it feel to write something that's so personal? Like in the book, you talk a lot about your family, your mental health, just different things that have happened throughout your life. Like, how does it feel that people are consuming that?
It feels very vulnerable. And like I said, when I started writing the book, I thought it could be more like, narrative nonfiction, a little bit more removed from my personal life, but it ended up being very personal. And I feel like I think of myself as like kind of a private person. So it's very interesting this has happened. But yeah, I feel vulnerable, but I think it's important because I feel like not many people with my identities have been able to like share their stories and publish an entire book. And I feel like sharing my personal story can make other people feel less alone, make them feel more seen. I think it's important. I think that old white guys shouldn't be the only ones who can write about ourselves or write stories or write books. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned there's not that many books about Black people from coastal Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a lot of pressure that your book is now one of the rare few?
Well, now that I think about it, um, maybe a little bit because I don't want to be seen as like the authority on coastal Georgia or being Black in coastal Georgia, Gullah Geechee culture, history. I'm not the authority. And I feel like in the book, I try to like, I'm like showing that I'm just learning a lot of things still. And I'm just the student and I'm asking people who are engaged in the work and observing, and I don't know everything. And so, I guess there is pressure, but I tried to write the book in a way that's like I'm not the expert on any of this. And so yeah.
And in the book, it's not just like a typical like memoir or even essay format. Like there's a lot of pictures, and you play around with structure, and even just the way that the book physically looks. How did you come up with the structure of the book?
I think I don't think you have to go to a Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing program to write a book at all. I think it did help though because help me because we would get a lot of like different writing prompts in class, and that would kind of force me to be more creative. So that really helped, and I think the way my mind works, it just made sense to just like blend all of these different things together. So journalism, essays, prose poems, the photos. It's just kind of like this book is just like an archive of my life, kind of, and in relationship to where I'm from. And so, yeah.
Um, how did you change throughout the process of writing the book, or do you feel like you've changed?
Hmm. I think so because I had time to like sit and think about the different things that have happened to me and like try to make meaning of them. Um, yeah, so I had a lot of time to just like, I don't know, sometimes I'd be writing and I'd be like remembering some things that happened and just like start crying. Um, it was like emotional and yeah. So I think that I don't know, it just helps you like reckon with different things that have happened in your life, maybe like accept them and normalize them by like sharing them with other people. Um, yeah. And yeah, like I said, I feel like I think of myself as a private person, but now I really say that because I have a whole book about myself. So I guess I'm not a private person anymore.
What is your, do you have like a typical writing practice? And like, what does that look like?
Yeah. I don't know if I have a typical. I feel like sometimes it would be like just staying up all night and just like getting everything on that page, consuming whatever substances I needed to consume. Sorry, y'all. And, just getting everything on the page, and I'm like, and then I'll clean it up later, you know. So just like I think it's hard for me to let loose because I was like very like journalist, very structured. So just like trying to just like let loose and just write whatever comes, and then like later on I can go and clean it up and make it make sense, things like that. I feel like some people, I really admire the people who can wake up early in the morning and write. And I hear like a lot of people say that, oh, writers, like, it's good if you know, write first thing in the morning because you don't have like all of the problems and whatever of the day in your mind yet. But I'm not an early riser, as many people know in here. So I feel like I was more of a late night writer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of the, I guess, the advice that like I see about writing, it assumes that the writer is able-bodied and can just power through for hours and hours at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like from what I've learned, the process doesn't look like that for everyone.
Right. And like, yeah, sometimes it's just not coming. Sometimes you'll just be blocked and you just have to, you know what helps me? I feel like reading often helps me get to writing because I get like inspired or something, or watching a documentary. I love watching documentaries. So like taking in art sometimes helps, you know, get me in the mood to write.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any writers that you would say like inspire you or inspired the book?
Yeah, definitely Alice Walker, um, our great Black feminist Georgia author who has some problematic views, but don't we all? I think she's a big one. Polly Murray, who I I referenced them in the book. Um, some that I read in grad school, like In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Uh, I just admired her for, it's about, you know, her experience with like domestic violence, and it's like a rare book about like domestic violence and you know, an LGBTQ relationship. And I just, I don't know, admired her for just being so open. um let's see, I think Audre Lorde, Barbara Smith, so many Black feminist writers. Like I feel like I walk in their shoes. Yeah.
Okay, so you have taste. Those are
I
all.
try. I try.
So, would you say that there's a difference between like writing this book and the work that you do when you're just writing like journalism? Um, so what would you say the difference is?
Mm. The journalism, I feel like I write a lot of journalism that is kind of like related to the kind of organizing that I do. So like reproductive justice, like queer and trans justice, things like that. But it's like I'm writing about other people. I'm reporting on other people usually, even if I know those people. But this is like personal, and um, yeah. So that's different. That's very different. And like I said, it was very hard for me to like learn how to write in that very personal way. I think it's because I am like a private person, and because I was just so used to like sharing other people's stories. And so yeah, I had to learn how to tell my own stories and how to just be brave. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you write this book for anyone in particular?
Yeah, I feel like it's surprising. I feel like a lot of different people who have read it already, um, even if they're like not like me, they can kind of relate to some of the things in the book. So, like you said, mental health, like, you know, complicated relationships with friends, family. So I feel like there's things that everyone could relate to. But I think I wrote this book for, you know, Black, queer, trans people from Georgia, because we don't have a lot of like, you know, we don't have a lot of books to turn to see ourselves. So Yeah. And Southerners in general, Black, queer, and trans Southerners in general. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you would write another book after this one?
I think I will.
Great. We'll be back here.
Hopefully. Yeah, I have a few ideas in mind.
Sorry, I'm like running out of questions, y'all. Yeah, so I mean the book is about your home. Would you feel like your do you feel like your relationship with home or like the idea of home has changed over time?
Yes. I feel like I talk about this a lot in the book, just like feeling like I wanted to get away from coastal Georgia. Like there was nothing for me there. That's what, I always heard growing up, very country, backward, this, that. But as an adult, seeing the beauty in it, seeing all of like the rich history and culture and the stories of Black resistance that like we just didn't learn growing up. We didn't learn that in elementary school, middle school, high school. Even though it was like in our own backyard, we didn't learn those stories. And so yeah, like I have like this newfound appreciation and like pride, and even though I don't live there, it's just a way to stay connected to this place that is an ancestral home.
What are some like components that you look for like in the other places that you live to be like this is my new home or this is my temporary home?
I think people, like just community. As a organizer, I feel like I've always, yeah, found home through like people who I was like organizing with and building community with. And yeah, I feel like I have a lot of like adopted homes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I've officially run out of questions, y'all. So I guess we'll go over to the audience.
I'm sure folks in here have some questions. So if folks would just raise their hands so that we can make sure everyone can hear, and also so that our online folks can hear. I'm going to make sure this is not completely tangled up. One moment.
I'm not gonna be annoying and be like, I can talk loud.
I believe you, but yes.
Yeah. But I can. I'm just going, to my own horn. Hey Neesha.
Hey, Essay.
My question is, what are the themes that you hope for people to like take from the book? And could you talk a little bit about the structure of the narrative? Because I hear you saying that they're like stories from other folks, but like what's the structure of this book and what themes do you hope for us to gain?
That's deep, yes. Okay, so the first part, themes, homecoming, identity, scrabbling with identity, complicated family and family relationships, friendships. Let's see. Black resistance. Yeah, I think those are some of the main ones. And the structure, I feel like I'm happy with how it turned out because I feel like it gives some variety. Like, some things are shorter, some are longer, some are more, based in history, some are more, journalistic. It's just like the brain of a Gemini all in there. So I'm happy that, like I said, I think grad school really helped because it like pushed me to be creative and like the different formats and not just be basic. So So I think that turned out well. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your question, Isha.
Hello, Neesha.
Hi, Kelly.
All right. So I guess my main question is because you've mentioned many times how with your background in journalism, you were a bit reluctant to bring in the deep personal details, at least at first. So when you were crafting, drafting, revising this, how did you maintain that balance, or how do you balance out, the more external features like coastal Georgia, the places you've grown up, their histories, and balancing it with your own personal history, especially in a personal essay piece?
Yeah, I think some of the essays are more personal than others. And as far as balance, I feel like my grad school classmates helped a lot with that. Kelly's one of my grad school classmates. And I feel like y'all were very helpful in being like, okay, like I'm not connecting with this. Like, what, like I got a lot of feedback, just like, I don't understand where you're going with this because you're just kind of saying it and anybody could be saying this. Where is the personal? So I think that really helped. And then just like my editors at Hub City Press doing the same thing. Yeah, I think just getting feedback from others is how I was able to like strike a balance. Yeah. Thank you. And we got one in the back too.
Awesome. Okay. Our online person, Jamie Pantazi, says, "Hi and welcome. Your grandmother sounds like such an amazing woman, and I can tell by reading how you write about her that she was so important to you. Could you share a favorite story about her that didn't make it into the book?"
Oh, goodness. I'm like looking at my sister. Do y'all remember? Do y'all got something? Oh my goodness! Stop. Okay. Okay. What's something about grandma? I shared a lot. I shared most of the things that really stand out, like how she used to buy us our holiday Barbies every Christmas, and how she used to love her cigarettes. She used to love her Pepsi. And I'm trying to think. And how at our church she started this kind of like birthday celebration. So like every month there would be after church we would go and to the place beside the church. What's that called? The annex, yes. And have birthday celebrations for whoever's birthday was that month at church. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think. Is there something? There probably is. That's a really good question. I might have to keep thinking about it, but that person is right. My grandma was very important to me, and I'm glad I was able to let everybody else know about her through this book. Keep her alive.
Oh. Hi, friend.
Hi, Miliaku.
Got the boots on for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very in awe of you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I have two questions.
Okay.
My first question is a question I've been thinking about for a really long time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Even in the shower.
Oh, okay.
Well, like...
I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Everybody has a lot of thoughts in the shower, okay?
My body's ready.
That are purely PG. My first question is, why the title? Like, what does the title mean?
Okay.
I feel like the title, I have a lot of feelings about the title that I've thought about that I don't need to. I'll just stop with that one question. I'll let you answer.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So Come By Here, I found out during the writing of this book that Come By Here or Kumbaya is as a song that is like rooted in Gullah Geechee culture. Like it's Kumbaya is this song that we, you know, a lot of us have heard, and I never knew that it originated in Darien, Georgia, which is in coastal Georgia. And so, and then I have a scene in the book with the Gullah Geechee ring shouters, and they were singing that song, Kumbaya, Come By Here. And I just thought that was so cool that that song is from the same place that I'm from. And so that's a piece of it. And I think it fits because like, I feel like as I like do my travels in coastal Georgia in the book, it's kind of like me coming by here and like showing people what is here. So I think that's, yeah, how it came to be.
Thank you. It really feels like an invitation. And so I'm really excited to read it as well, to go with you to coastal Georgia.
Let's do it.
Oh, And then my second question is, I think it takes a lot of courage to write a book, which is why I said I'm really proud of you. And then a lot to write about yourself, especially given, you know, that the internet is just full of haters. And so I wonder, what are the reasons why you wouldn't have written this book? And what helped you? It's a good question, right?
Period.
I'm inquisitive.
Yeah.
I'm inquisitive. No, but what are the reasons you wouldn't have written this book, and what got you to write and publish it anyway? And how long did it take you?
Thank you. Okay, this is good. This is good. Why wouldn't I have written it? I didn't intend to write it. Like I told y'all, I thought I was gonna write, like, be just kind of like an observer. I wasn't really going to be in it when I was starting to write this book. But like I said, like once I got to grad school and was getting all this feedback, I'm like, no, it has to be personal. And I wasn't expecting to publish it so soon. But what happened was I was meeting with an editor from Scallywag magazine, and I was telling her about my thesis, which eventually became this book. And she was like, oh, I think we would be interested in publishing that. And I was like in my third year of grad school. And that's how that happened. So I thought I would have more time after like graduating and stuff, but it just all happened so fast. And I just could, it was just like, why not? Like, I wasn't going to be like, I mean, I guess I could have been like, no, but I don't know. Somehow I got the courage. I think, you know, through reading other people's memoirs and seeing them be brave and courageous, I was like, I can do this. I can do this. Even though even still today, I'm like, can I do this? But that's just, it just happened. I just by chance like had this meeting with this editor who was like, we might be interested, and then they were. And how long did it take? So it would be like grad school, which was like 3 years, and then like maybe a year after that. So maybe like 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you talk about the relationship between your organizing work and your writing, and maybe like how your organizing might inform your writing or vice versa? And that includes like things you might learn or pick up from other folks who you might organize with.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I call myself a movement journalist, meaning that the journalism that I do is really rooted in solidarity with social justice movements. When we think about like journalism, a lot of times we think of being like objective, neutral, things like that. But movement journalists believe like there's no such thing as that. Like we all have politics, we all have these different lived experiences we're bringing to the reporting. And so it's okay to be like a journalist and an organizer at the same time. And it's okay to like be accountable to social justice movements and things like that. And so that's how like I approach my journalism. And yeah, I don't want to be like that extractive, exploitative type journalist. Like I consider myself like as a part of these different movements. And so the work that I do has to be like accountable to them and yeah, like just based in like real relationships and not just I'm just coming here to tell a story and then I'm not invested. Goodbye. So yeah.
Is it on? Oh, hi. Hi, Neesha.
Hi, Emmy.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about your work and for giving us the gift of your stories. I have a question around your research and what was it like to research the place that you're from and obviously have such a personal connection to, but what was it like to research yourself, like as a practice, to write about yourself?
Terrifying. It's scary what I found in this brain. Research is like the most fun thing. I love it. And I was like corresponding with like, you know, the manager of the Brunswick Glen County Library. I was getting on her nerves, asking her to like pull me different articles and things like that. Actually going to the different places, like Sapelo Island. So I consider that like a kind of research as well. And let's see. Yeah, reading you know, a lot of articles, things like that. Researching myself, like I said, that was yeah. I found out a lot about myself and just like what all these different experiences in my life, like what how did they shape me and things like that. That was like I said earlier, it was cathartic at times and like just really emotional. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Neesha.
Hi, well, Josie.
Thank you so much for this book.
Thank you for being
I
here.
have it's not a question of what you've done, but I want to push you to help me vision here.
Okay.
As an 83-year-old, I've been working with younger people and encouraging and telling my story. And I'm wondering, as you, a person maybe 30s, how how do you think it might be possible to interact with some younger people, say, let's say teenagers, to share your story and to encourage them? And where are the places that you might meet them? And what are some of the settings? And can you vision how you could show them yourself in a way that they would be inspired to believe that they can do what you did?
Yes. Thank you for that question. So for the past few months, I've been working with a program called Gangsters to Growers. Yeah, turn up. It's a program for young people ages 18 to 30, and they're learning about uh, creating agricultural worker-owned cooperatives, and they take all kinds of different classes. And one of the different classes they take is creative writing. So I've been leading them in that, and that's what I've been trying to do. Like I've taught different things around movement journalism, around poetry, around personal essays, brought people in to talk about like video journalism, storytelling, just creating narratives, things like that. And I feel like it's been pretty well received. I feel like sometimes they're like not into it maybe, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. Like I feel like they've been like way more interested than I thought they might be. And you know, when I say I think they've been really receptive. Like maybe like one or two being like, I don't know how I'm going to use this in the future, and then I try to just like convince them that they will. Like reading like poetry from Rifat Al-Arir and June Jordan about Palestine and sometimes getting like pushback, like, oh, but we need to worry about what we're doing here. We can't be worrying about what's happening over there. But being like, but the same things, them like, degrading them, treating them less than human. That's the same thing that's been happening to Black people, for so long here. So trying to make connections for them and things like that. So that's a really great program. And yeah, I think we need more of that. Because I think they are interested. I have been like pleasantly surprised at how interested they are. Like some of them are into photography. A lot of them are into rapping, poetry, things like that. And so I think they do care. We just need to like give them a chance to like express themselves, different opportunities. Yeah.
So for folks who maybe have sort of an ambivalent relationship to land or home, could you suggest maybe one writing prompt or one way that people could maybe start to write into their relationship to home?
Yes, yes, thank you. So I would say a lot of y'all have probably done this, and this is like the first thing I did with my Gangsters to Growers students is the Where I'm From poem. So yeah, so I'm kind of giving them prompts to talk about the different, like what does it look like at home? What does it smell like at home? What are things that you heard your grandparents or your parents say, and have them like write a poem from it. So yeah, I really love that exercise, and I think that's always a good starting place. And some really good poems came out of it too. I learned a lot because I feel like a lot of them, when I asked them at first, like, where are you from? They were like, oh, Atlanta. But then I was hearing like, oh, Cordell, and like, what's the other place? Like they were saying like places that their grandparents were from and things, like in like Middle Georgia and things. So they started really thinking about it. One student started talking about how her grandmother was a Garifuna from the Honduras, so like a Black community in Honduras and in Latin America, and start talking about the different traditions, Garifuna traditions. So yeah, that's one thing.
I love that. I love that exercise.
Yeah.
So we have so many people who I think are going to want to get their book signed and hang out with you and, have a chance to chat with you, that I think this is a perfect time for us to close. So I want to let our folks who are watching online know that they can click and come by here by touching that teal button at the bottom center of the screen, and we will send you a signed copy while supplies last. So thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it. We hope you stay safe and well, and we're going to sign off with y'all. And for everyone who's here in the room, you get first dibs on signed copies, but first we need you to give a big round of applause.